Are you guys ready to watch my record run I got last night? Alright. I can't hear it at all, but this is okay. Let's just commentate it. Because I put it as a thing in, what's it called? In OBS. Anyways. Fallout 4 speedrunning, right guys? It's in French, because the dialogue is 11 seconds faster than in English. In the top right corner, you'll see the number 60. That's because the frame rate is limited to 60 FPS, because this game actually has faster physics at higher FPSs, and we don't want people with high frame rates to just... Oh, let me turn off my live split. Whoops. We don't want people with high frame rates to just get easy records by just running the game really fast, you know? I pick the presets that I pick. One, because they're my favorite presets of all of them. Two, because Codsworth roams around the house while you're selecting your presets, right? What program do I use? We use a DX Story to cap our frame rate, but I use RTSS to display my frame rate, because RTS is more customizable. You can change the font. But pretty much when you're selecting your character, Codsworth roams around the house, and if you talk to him at a specific point when he's roaming, you actually save a second, because he doesn't turn around to talk to you. He like just keeps moving straight to the dishes when you talk to him. So I'm gonna be oh, I should say the game is ran on patch 1.1.30, which I believe is the first patched version of the game. It's not the release version, because 1.1.30 is a little more stable. All the glitches that we use are still there. And then what else? Also, I don't think we have a backup of the release version. Yeah, my new this video is with Sanctuary, you'll see. So for the stats, I'm going to max out endurance, because the more endurance you have, the slower your AP drains when you the slower your AP will drain when you sprint. I maxed out agility, because the more agility you have, the more AP you have, so you can sprint for longer. Also, you have more AP, so you can use VATS more, and we do use VATS. And then max out, or we put 1 point into intelligence to bring it up to 2. Oh yeah, I forgot that we could do that with Steam Depot. Yeah, this commentary is for you too. But we put 1 point into intelligence to bring it up to 2, because you get more XP for the more intelligence you have. And we actually want to time out a specific level up. We want to level up at a very specific time. So if we have any intelligence less than 2, we won't level up at that specific time. And if we have intelligence more than 2, we won't level up at that specific time. And we want to level up at this specific time, and the reason for this is because it refreshes our AP. It like completely replenishes it. And that's good, because we want to be able to sprint more in this long running segment that we do later on. And then we dump the rest into luck, not because luck benefits us in any way, but because it's just the fastest version, or it's the fastest stat to just dump the rest, like extra special points into. It's not really, it doesn't really help us. None of the other stats actually would help us, like, in the long run. Like, you may be saying, why don't you put it in strength for the extra carry weight, or the extra whatever? It's because that doesn't make us go any faster. Like, there's nothing else that really benefits us. This is played on very easy. Also, I should say, if you're gonna say something like, but why don't you put this many points in perception so you could get this perk? It's because that perk doesn't help us go faster. This game is played on very easy. Thanks, Dutchies. Because on very easy, you kill people the fastest, and you die the slowest, so inherently it's the best difficulty to speedrun on. No mods installed. I'll still play Super Mario 64 during this. No mods installed. There are glitches used because this is any percent. And if you're unfamiliar with speedruns, any percent is the most popular category for speedruns. And you're allowed to use pretty much any glitch. The only, what's the word I'm looking for? The only limitations we have on the glitches you can use are things like no pre-made saves. Any saves you see me load are ones that are made from when I press new game. What else? If you want to watch runs without glitches, I have one of those too on my YouTube channel. I hold the record in that. Pretty much this part right here is just sitting in the cryopod. So I play Nintendo 64. It's not an emulator. I'm playing, there's literally an N64 sitting right next to me that I'm playing on. And I use a capture card. I forget the capture card I actually use. It's like IO delay or something like that. I forget. So let's talk about oh, I need to go get a red coin down here. Let's talk about coordinates. So the way video games work is video games, like, pretty much the game is always reading the status of the game with a bunch of numbers, right? And the way the game tells where your character is by reading, yeah, that's the one I use. That's the one I use, Sam. IO data GV USB 2. If I added my best splits from all my runs, my sum of best is 39:38. 39 minutes, 38 seconds. What was I saying? Oh, okay, so games read where your character is always standing by reading your coordinates, right? Your characters always have an X, Y, and Z coordinate. And Fallout 4 is no different. Just like Mario does that right now. Mario has an X, Y, and Z coordinate as I run around. And there's actually two glitches we use that that take advantage of coordinates. One's called punch warping and the other's called cover sliding. So punch warping is when you attempt to melee attack something in VATS, but going through with the attack would either put you out of bounds or inside of an object or clip you through an object. Now naturally the game doesn't want you to do any of these things because they're all supposed to be like, they're all classified as like pretty much bugs. Like glitches. The game doesn't want you to do any of that shit. So instead, when you attempt to do a melee attack that does that in VATS, the game has to hesitate for a moment and try and think, how am I going to put him next to his target without putting him out of bounds inside of an object or teleporting him through an object? And if you cancel your attack while the game is thinking about this, you can actually store the coordinates of where you were standing. And you'll actually see me attempt to attack some rad roaches in a moment. In VATS, that's what I'm doing, is I stand on top of a couple of boxes and I attempt to melee attack them. And I like nestle myself between the boxes and a wall. So going through with the attack would actually put me like through the boxes, so the game doesn't want that. So the VATS attack doesn't go through right away, and my guy is going to stand there like and not do anything for a moment, and I cancel my attack by pressing right click while I do that. And that will store my coordinates of where I was standing. And then the next time I attempt to melee attack something in VATS, I get teleported those coordinates. And right now what I'm doing is I'm just like clearing out the vault, grabbing all the stuff I need to inside the vault, like the gun and stim packs. I'm using cones to clip through walls, called either cone clips or VLC clips, whichever you prefer. I'm going to lure this rad roach over to these boxes so it's closer to me. It's pretty slow. And then I just set up the punch warp. I'm going to do one more VLC clip, and then I'm going to set up what's called a cover slide. And if you're unaware, Fallout 4 has a mechanic where you can aim around a corner. It's like a cover mechanic. You'll see me do it right here. See, I aimed around the corner. So if you on the patch we're playing on, yes, that's exactly where VLC comes from. On the patch that we're playing on, if you break the animation of stopping that aim where your guy goes back behind the corner, then the game says, hey, you haven't completed that animation and you need to. So the next time you're in first person with your gun out, we're going to complete that animation, but we're going to complete it in the position where you completed it. So essentially the game remembers where you like did that animation, which is like the whole cover thing, and then the next time you enter first person with your gun out, those are the two requisites for it, then you get slingshotted back to your position. And I lowered my frame rate to 30. Lowering our frame rate is allowed. Am I sick? No, I'm just not talking very loud. Lowering our frame rate is allowed because it makes cover slides more consistent, but we're not allowed to raise our frame rate above 60 naturally, as for reasons I talked about earlier. And I pull out my gun in first person right there. It's also a new mic, yeah. And it slingshots me towards Concord. And I discovered Sanctuary on that slide, which is very good. That doesn't always happen, but it saves 17 seconds later on because you can just fast travel to Sanctuary as opposed to running to it. And it's good that I land at Concord because now I can run over and discover the Museum of Freedom. The Museum of Freedom is good because the Minutemen are there, and we need to get something off of Sturgis, a member of the Minutemen, in order to complete the game. But we don't want to get that item right now, so I'm just going to discover Museum of Freedom and then trigger my punch warp on this raider. And what this will do is put me under the map, in the middle of the map, and then I will up warp, which is pretty much spawning on like the ground. I'll up warp onto the map right next to Green Tech Genetics. And I discover Green Tech Genetics, and what I do right there is I make a quick save. And the reason for that is I'm going to do a load warp into a sewer so I spawn with more AP, but that's a bit more, load warps are a bit more advanced. I'll talk about load warps later on in the run. It's not really necessary to explain them right now, because this load warp doesn't really do anything major other than give me the HP and AP that I had when I made my quick save. No, the item doesn't spawn yet. I'll talk about it in a second. And pretty much I load warp going into the sewer. You'll know what load warping is later on. And as soon as I load into the sewer, I quit to the main menu and I load the autosave that was made. And the reason for this is that when you load a save from the main menu that was made underwater, you spawn at the top of the water. And it turns out the top of the water inside of the sewer is out of bounds. And by swimming up next to this pipe that I just swam next to, and dropping down, you hit the trigger zone for the last quest in the game, the nuclear option. So now I have the last quest in the game, which is great. I can complete the game. But in order to complete the game, I need to get into the Institute. And in order to get into the Institute, I have to do a bunch of other things. And that's why this run is still 40 minutes long. But before I'm going to do a bunch of things, what I'm going to do is go shopping. But you may have noticed that I don't really have any caps. But luckily, on the patch that we're playing on, there's a pretty much an infinite cap glitch. It gives us infinite store credit, essentially. And we'll do that. And the way that it works is you buy and sell bullets in a specific order, and it allows for you to continually sell bullets over and over to get more store credit. The specific order for buying and selling the bullets, if you really want to know, is you buy all of her 38 ammo, you sell back one of the bullets, and then you sell back the rest. And then what this does is it locks one bullet in your inventory that you can sell as many times as you want. And once you sell it about 20 to 30 times, when you attempt to buy the stack back from her that you just sold to her, it keeps selling that stack back to her. So essentially we get like 30,000 caps and store credits within seconds, which you'll see right now. So I run up and talk to Daisy through the wall because it's faster. And I'm going to look for several items in her inventory. One being a biometric scanner, which is required to beat the game because we need it when we build the teleporter. It's like a required crafting item. I looked for bourbon buff out jet because those all increase my endurance. Except for jet. Bourbon and buff out increase my endurance, which is good because it allows for me to run longer. I looked for jet because jet slows down time and increases your jump height slightly. which is used in a glitch at the end of the run. We'll get back to the whole jet thing. She didn't have jet, so I wasn't able to, so I'll have to like grab it later on from a different spot. I bought all of her Radaway and stim packs. I bought Destroyer's left leg because that increases our move speed by 10%, which is good because the faster you move, the faster you beat the game. I'm binding all my stuff right now, by the way. I bought Destroyer's chest piece because it decreases damage taken from humans by 15%, which is just a nice little quality of life thing that doesn't really waste any time to grab. No one was chosen for this run because we know how it's gonna end. I bought all her frag mines that she has, and then I bought hey Gen C. And then I bought all the pipe pistols she has. And I bought her frag mines, and I also picked up the frag mine outside of mass fusion. The reason for that being is that with punch warps, remember how we had to melee attack something in VATS? Well, it's kind of hard to get enemies into exact coordinates, but you can melee attack frag mines, which is great because we can just throw our frag mines wherever we want to set up a punch warp. Then I also bought all of her pipe pistols because pipe pistols allow for they're really good for clipping. They have good item physics in this. So now the reason why I come back to the Museum of Freedom now, as opposed to doing it earlier, is because when we discovered the nuclear option, the quest from the sewer, it spawned an item inside of Sturgis' inventory, Sturgis being a member of the Minutemen, and we need this item to complete the game. There's buff out right there, so I'll grab that to increase my endurance. This is pre-recorded video that I did offline last night. It's new record. So I'm doing commentary over it. So this item spawns on Sturgis, and we want to pickpocket him and grab it. But the problem is that we can't pickpocket him until Preston stops talking to us. And typically, it's a very long dialogue with Preston. So rather than wait for that to end, we can either leave the room and re-enter, or just aggro them and then put away our gun. And aggroing them is faster, so we just shoot them a bunch of times and put away our gun, and then we're able to pickpocket Sturgis. So now we have the Institute relay targeting sequence, which is Sturgis' item, and that's used at the end of the game in the Institute split. And I set up a cover slide right before I exited the Museum of Freedom, and now I'm cover sliding to discover Lexington, which is a location we need to do a quest at. And the way that cover slide worked is, you remember how I said you have to be in first person with your gun out to cover slide? Well, being in your Pip-Boy counts as being in first person. So if you're in third person with your gun out, and then you pull up your Pip-Boy, you're technically in first person and your gun is out. So it'll trigger your cover slide. But if you double tap tab to pull your Pip-Boy up and put it away real quickly, it'll use your cover slide in short spurts. So I use a short spurt cover slide, I call them cover slide charges, to discover Lexington. And at Lexington, I'm going to go down into Slocum Joe's basement, which is where the switchboard is, which is where the loyalty quest for the railroad takes place. If you're, I'm going to set up a punch warp right away because I'm going to want to come back up to this exit real quick. The way that factions in this game work is, in order to join a faction, you have to meet them and then do their loyalty quest, so that they know they can trust you. And typically for me, like the Minutemen, it's a go help these settlers quest. For the railroad, it's this quest. This quest pretty much, see, I just punch warp back up. This quest consists of going to Slocum Joe's basement, which is the switchboard with Deacon, and he'll hack open that vault we jumped down into, and in the vault we'll grab Carrington's prototype, which we bring back to the railroad HQ. But it turns out, if you're able to get into the vault on your own without Deacon, which you're not supposed to be able to do, but we clipped into it, and then we picked up Carrington's prototype, and then we dropped it, that updates the quest to the point where we just have to leave the basement, and it like pretty much completes the loyalty quest. So we're then sided with the railroad. And we can't just load warp out of the basement. You may have that question later on, like, wait, why didn't you just load warp out later when like you learn what load warping is? We actually do have to manually exit the basement in order to update the quest stage. I actually got crippled right here by a frag grenade, and I was mad about that. But right now what I'm going to do is go and meet the railroad and join them. So I'm running to Old North Church, and once I get inside, what I'll do is drop a pipe pistol because they're good for clipping, and I'll clip right into the basement, and then Desdemona, being the citizen of the Commonwealth, doesn't even bat an eye at a guy dropping from the ceiling to talk to them. So I just drop down, and then the railroad just wait here all day with some lights, some floodlights, and talk to you. So now I'm just going to do a bunch of dialogue to join the railroad. Like, we literally dropped through their ceiling 30 seconds ago, and Deacon's going to vouch for us and say that we fought off 1,000,000 synths with us and carried them home. And they'll say, oh, okay, and just let us join. So that's what this is, just doing the dialogue. Got rid of the rest of my cover slide charges right there. I kind of messed up. I didn't mean to pull out my gun yet. I usually pull it out in the hallway up there, but that doesn't really matter. It's a moot point. That's an improper usage of moot point. It's irrelevant. Join the railroad. And what I'm going to do then is once I enter the railroad HQ, I'm going to fast travel back to Lexington, or I'm going to level up first. And when I level up, I'm going to take Action Boy, because that increases our AP regen rate by 25%, which is good because you can sprint more. And I take Solar Powered, which increases strength and endurance by 2 from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that's good because if we run around during the day then we have a lot more endurance and we can sprint for longer. And that's very good. So we've then fast traveled to Lexington. Now we're going to fast travel back to the railroad HQ for 2 reasons. One is it skips Desdemona walking into the HQ, and 2 is because it manipulates the day-night cycle just enough so that it's daytime when we fast travel to Boston Commons right now. Which is good, because we just took Solar Powered, so we want it to be daytime, and we're going to do a long running segment now. This long running segment is essentially us going and discovering Diamond City, and then running across the Glowing Sea to Virgil's lab. And the reason why we have to go to Diamond City first is because if we don't go to Fenway, then we don't update the quest Jewel of the Commonwealth and Story of the Century. And that means that when we go and talk to Nick later on, he'll be soft-locked. He won't progress any dialogue with us, and we can't progress the game. So I'm just going to run down this road, and my frame rate was dropping a lot, so I was trying to just like look at the ground to increase it, but the frames are really inconsistent when you're running around downtown Boston. That's just how this game works. And now I'm going to use a VLC cone clip to clip into Fenway real quick for 2 reasons. One, because clipping into the back of Fenway and then entering the load zone on the inside brings you right to the entrance, so you don't have to run all the way around Fenway. The second reason is that it skips all of Piper and Mayor McDonough's dialogue, so you don't have to sit through them talking to advance the quests. And what I'm going to do, as soon as I load in, I'm going to back up right next to the load zone to exit Diamond City and make a hard save. And I want you to pay attention to, when I exit, how the screen fades to black. So I'm going to make a save, and notice the screen had a short fade to black there. So there's a glitch that I'm going to be doing called load warping. And remember, I just made a hard save. We call hard save just regular saves, as opposed to as opposed to quick saves. You know how there's the 2 different kinds of saves, regular saves and quick saves. Regular saves I refer to as hard saves. I made a hard save right next to that fade to black area. And the reason for that is we're going to be using a glitch called load warping. So the way load warping works is pretty much what I do is I make a quick save, and then load an old save, then enter a fade to black zone, and then press quick save or quick load during the fade to black. And essentially what this does is it allows for you to load an old save as a character from the quick save. So it pretty much allows for you to change the position of your character to the location of any old save. So an example of this is we're going to be meeting Kellogg very soon. And after we meet up with Kellogg, what we're going to do then is make a quick save, and we won't be able to fast travel outside of Fort Hagen. So we're going to use load warps to change our position to outside of Fort Hagen. So, essentially what it does is, just to go over it one more time, I'll do whatever I do with Kellogg. Don't really want to spoil that. Then I make a quick save. I load the Diamond City save. And then by entering that fade to black zone and quick loading during the fade to black, I'll load as the character who just encountered Kellogg, who has like discovered all the locations and stuff. That pretty much, it keeps my progress, but I'll be in the location of the old save. So all in all, layman's terms, it's a way to load an old save and keep your progress. And keep in mind, these are not saves. These are not pre-made saves. They're saves I made from the time I pressed new. So yeah, chat will be in the video. What you're seeing right now is what we'll be posting on YouTube with chat and all. But yeah, it allows for us to load an old save and maintain our progress. And all the saves I've been making and loading are saves that I've made since when I pressed new game, so it's all valid. Anytime you see me loading an old save, that's me doing a load warp. So right now, I'm just running across the Glowing Sea. And I wanna get to the bottom left corner of the Glowing Sea for two reasons. One is to reach Virgil's cave, Virgil's lab. And the reason we want to get to Virgil's lab is to make a hard save right outside of it, so we can load warp into Virgil's lab later on. And then the second reason is because I'm going to set up a cover slide. So, imagine the video that you're seeing right now. Imagine that's the map, right? So we talked about how cover slides slingshot you back to the position you set them up in. So if we set up a cover slide in the bottom left corner of the map, so imagine setting up a cover slide in the bottom left corner of your screen, and then going to the top left corner of the screen. By triggering our cover slide, we'll slide down the left edge of the screen, and essentially that's what we're about to do on this map. Set up a cover slide right here on this upcoming rock in the bottom left corner, and then go to the top left corner, and cover slide down the left side of the map to Fort Hagen. We want to stop halfway down the map at Fort Hagen. And remember earlier how I talked about we want to level up at a very specific point? So watch my AP, see how it's next to 0? We want to level up right when we discover Crater of Adam, so it completely refreshes our AP, because that's like a pretty free time save right there, because we don't have to wait for our entire AP to regenerate, you know? So now that we've set up our cover slide, we're going to go down to the bottom left corner of the map, which is where Virgil is. Granted, we were already in the bottom left corner of the map. We're going to make the hard save outside of Virgil's cave, and we're going to fast travel to Lexington to grab our power armor. And power armor is good for cover slides, I forgot to mention earlier, because it negates fall damage. Also, YouTube comments, please don't get triggered by chat. Half the guys in the chat are people who comment on YouTube videos also. Am I still the record holder? Yes, I am. I've held the record consistently since like March 15th last year or something like that. So I make the save right here. And now I fast traveled to Lexington. And you may remember earlier I said entering your Pip-Boy triggers a cover slide, but that's only when you have your gun out as well. We didn't have our gun out, so we're free to pull up our Pip-Boy and fast travel right now. Also, YouTube comments, come check me out at twitch.tv/tomatoanus. It's the same as my YouTube channel name. Shameful plug. So I grabbed this power armor, and what I'm going to do immediately then is fast travel to Vault 111, because as we talked about earlier, we set up a cover slide in the bottom left corner of the map, and we now go to the top left corner of the map, and we're going to cover slide down the left side of the map. So I'm now triggering my cover slide, and this cover slide was actually atrocious. If it weren't for this cover slide, this run would be phenomenal. But this cover slide was absolutely atrocious, as you'll see in a moment. So we want to land as close to Fort Hagen as possible. And notice how my splits are at minus 4.2, which means at this point in the run, I was 4 seconds ahead of my personal best. Just wait to see how much time I lose on this split alone. So I should be landing my cover slide right about now, and right away I'm going to just ditch the power armor because we don't need it anymore. And notice how far I am. It's so bad. Normally, I'll say where we normally land. We normally land in an area around like here. So now what I do once I get up here is I'm going to drop a pipe pistol and use it to clip into Fort Hagen. Butter. That was a smooth pipe pistol clip. And I'm going to take out my Fat Man because it's a good negotiating tool. I'm going to drop a pipe pistol because I'm going to use this to clip once the elevator doors open. I'm going to clip down to the basement where Kellogg is. I'm going to bump up against a door in the hallway to trigger Kellogg's spawn. So bump against this door. And then I'm going to go and talk to Kellogg. And then grab a couple items off of him. And then view the access logs to progress the quest. And I'm going to quick save and then load my Diamond City save. So I'm now at plus 18, which means I lost, if you include fractions of a second, I lost about 23 seconds in that split. So even if I had lost like 5 or 10, this run will be a lot better. So notice how the fade to black got interrupted there. That was actually me quick loading while the screen was fading to black. So now I'll load as the character who just killed Kellogg, but I'll be at Diamond City. I don't have any New Vegas world record runs. That's all Kung. But I'm glad that you came here and joined us. So we're going to fast travel to Green Tech Genetics because we're going to go set up a punch warp. Let me talk about the load warp I did really early on with the sewer. I made a quick save as soon as I discovered Green Tech because I want to have Green Tech discovered. And I also made the save there because I had a lot of HP and a lot of AP. So by sprinting straight to the sewer, when I get to the sewer, I'll be low on HP from getting shot by raiders and also low on AP from sprinting past them. But as I load into the sewer, I'll be completely refilled on HP and AP because I'll be the character who just discovered Green Tech. Also, I just threw this mine up onto this pole to set up a punch warp because that pole that I just set up that punch warp on, that street light, the coordinates of it align pretty magnificently inside of Park Street Station, which is where we're going right now because we're going to go and talk to Nick. Sup, Shawshanked? Also, I equipped a frag. Oh, the items I picked up off of Kellogg that I need are his brain augmenter, I believe is what it's called, and also his frag grenade. So, The reason for the brain augmenter is because it's required to complete the game. The frag grenade is because you can easily trigger punch warps with frag grenades. And we don't have enough frag mines to trigger all of our punch warp with frag mines, so we're going to trigger this one with a frag grenade. And just like that, with the coordinates that we set up at the street lamp, we're at the end of Park Street Station, and we're now entering Vault 114, which is where Nick is. And then, rather than walk all the way around and talk to Dino and Nick, we're just going to grab this pipe pistol. Come on, there we go. Clip onto the roof. Jump over to here, and then jump into Nick's bedroom. Grab some ceramic for crafting later on, and then talk to Nick.
Vous aviez raison. Il faut que je trouve un moyen.
And like I said earlier, if when we were in Diamond City, we didn't like if we had never gone to Diamond City and progressed the quests, then Nick right now wouldn't actually like be talking to us, or he'd say, what's the line he says? Pretty much he would be locked in a dialogue. So after talking to Nick, I make a quick save, and I load the Diamond City save, and you'll notice that I quick load as soon as the screen starts fading to black. Yeah, we don't need the bobblehead there. The bobblehead isn't important. So I'll walk backwards and quick load as soon as it starts fading to black. And then 2 ways to affirm that you have successfully load warped are that 1, you see 2 loading screens. The first one is this just black one that is often from that often happens when you just quick load, and the second one is from like the actual loading screen of loading the area. So now I'll be the character who just talked with Nick, and now we're going to progress the main quest by going to the memory den in Good Neighbor and talking with Nick, and also Dr. Amari, because in order to complete the game, we need to go through Kellogg's memories. And if there were a way to skip this memory, like this whole memory sequence, then you would go down as, like if you found a way, you would go down as a legend in the speedrunning community for Fallout 4. Honestly, if anyone finds a way to completely skip this section that is applicable in any percent and saves time, I'd give them like $250. I'll put that bounty on it right now. So now that we're at the memory den, we have to go down and talk to Amari.
On a besoin de votre aide, docteur.
And then we have to talk to Nick. Let's pretty much go through this. And it's pretty much setting up so that we're going to go through Kellogg's memories inside of Nick's head.
Merci beaucoup, Nick.
Speed cooked, nice. So we're going to throw a fragment right here and set up a punch warp in the basement. And because I don't have jet yet, I need to grab the jet that's right here and make sure that I'm crouched into it so I don't get aggroed by them. And then the reason why I set up the punch warp and then exit is because exiting and entering the memory den skips Amari's dialogue. And then when we re-enter, we obviously don't want to have to run all the way back down there because that's slow, so we're just going to punch warp back down on the drifter inside of the memory pod, who is actually Deacon, if you look closely.
Dites-moi que vous avez une solution, docteur. Okay.
And we're going to talk to Amari.
D'accord.
And then we're going to do a skip, a dialogue skip on Amari. So Amari is tagged as essential, and there's actually a script to de-aggro Nick from Amari. So we can't kill Amari, but if we down her and make sure that the audio wasn't on for that, my bad. I'll replay that. My bad.
And before we find it and get speed cooked.
Speed cooked, there you go. So pretty much if we shoot Amari, so she aggroes onto us, then Nick will aggro onto her. And if we then down Amari, we can't kill her because she's tagged as essential. If we down Amari, then it'll pretty much abuse, in air quotes, the script with her and Nick diagoing from each other, and it'll skip a 30-second dialogue where when you sit down in the pod, she's saying, "I'm uploading you now," and stuff like that. It immediately fades to white. So there is a way to skip this this running segment. This running segment's about 1:20, but the method to skip it isn't viable in actual runs yet. It's not RTA viable is the term. But there has been a way that was found, mostly by Brongle and Gingenia. I'm not sure what the workload was, how it was split between them, but there is a way to skip it, but it's just not very viable right now. But the bad part of this is you do 1:20 of this running, and we can't sprint. Huh, I don't know why.
For the // at the end.
Please, no. If you do that, I'll time you out for like a week. Pretty much after that whole running segment, we now have to stand at the end of this and wait for like 2 minutes. And this is also another thing that we really want to skip. So that bounty I put on it earlier, that's like to skip all of this, the running segment and this whole thing, and have it be viable in any percent.
Kellogg.
Because I don't want to put a bounty on it and then someone just find a way to skip it, but it completely soft locks the game, you know, and it's like super slow. So I'm just gonna play more Mario. But pretty much now what we're doing, pretty much we're just progressing the main quest now. Oh, should we try and do the... I'm so bad at this. I'm not good at Mario, by the way. I'm really bad at that. I'm just bad at Mario in general. Super Mario for 64 in general.
Merde, il y a des têtes qui vont tomber. Je le capture et le ramène ou je l'élimine? Il faut l'éliminer. Il travaillait sur un projet classé top secret. Sans blague. Une des grosses têtes de biosciences? Merde. Bon. Je suppose que tu vas ramener le gamin. Affirmatif. Ta seule mission est de trouver Virgil.
I don't know if there's any more coins up here.
Vous allez me ramener chez mon papa?
Oui. Viens à côté de moi et ne bouge pas.
D'accord.
Well, I guess not.
X688. Prêt pour accès avec Shaun.
Au revoir, monsieur Kellogg. J'espère qu'on se reverra un jour.
Where's the last red coin? Is it in the... Do I have to do the flying shit?
Il se téléporte. Je comprends.
I can't remember where my last one is. No, I'm still doing the commentary.
Je vais vous faire sortir de là. C'est quand vous voulez.
Alright, so that whole talking segment is done. So now I exit the memory den, or exit the memory pod, memory lounger, whatever it's called. And to skip Amari's whole dialogue right here, what I'm going to do is just shoot her with my gun once, and it skips all of her dialogue. So I quick save then, and I'm going to load warp to Virgil's cave. Hey Joey, can I do that experiment? No. No, this is the new record, bruh. Your run isn't the record anymore. But yeah, I load warp to this cave because I now need to talk to Virgil. And obviously, the fastest way to get to it is just load warp. So I'm going to run down here and talk with Virgil. And pretty much what he's going to tell us, or we're going to say to him, hey, I know how you get in and out of the Institute now. It's with teleportation. He's like, ah, yes, that's right. And pretty much you're asking him, how do you get there? And he says, you need to use a Courser chip to pretty much find out where they are. That's like the long story short of it. There's probably a lot of gross symbolizations in that and like stuff, but yeah, it's pretty much we need to go and kill a Courser in order to get the Courser chip to be able to teleport
D'accord.
into the Institute.
Moi simplement.
So he's going to tell us, he's going to say, you need to listen to the radio and listen to the signals to find out where the Courser is. But the Courser is just in Green Tech Genetics. And if you remember earlier, we discovered Green Tech Genetics. So we're just going to fast travel back to there. And then enter Green Tech Genetics and go kill the Courser. Once I get inside Green Tech Genetics, I'm going to use a trash bin to climb up 2 levels to an area where we will set up a punch warp to store our coordinates. And then I'm going to run down a hallway and enter an elevator. Hey, Waff. Dang, Dutchies, you got lots of bagels. So grab this trash bin, trash can, whatever area of the world you live in, whatever you call it. Climb up these 2 levels. Run up here. Set up a punch warp. Run past the frag grenade. We're gonna throw down our frag mine, and we're going to then punch warp up to. You'll see. Normally you have to run up like 4 flights of stairs, but if we just punch warp, then we're right next to the Courser, and we can just talk with him real quick, grab the Courser chip off him, and then load warp back to Diamond City. So now that we have the Courser chip, we need to decode it to actually like know where the Institute is per se. So load warp right there. So where we need to go is to the railroad, and luckily for us, we've already talked with them, so we can just run in and say, hey, we need to decode this, and they're gonna say, all right. And that's because we've already become friends with them. When you play through casually, what you can do is you can actually kill all the railroad if you so choose to. And then after you kill them, you can decode it yourself. But it's much faster. Pretty much 2 things for this. It's much faster with using glitches to just become friends with them by doing their loyalty quests and then have them do it. And also, if we were to kill the railroad, then we wouldn't actually be able to finish the game with the nuclear option quest that we discovered. And I'll talk more about why that happens and why the nuclear option quest is with the railroad later on. But we just fast traveled to the HQ, and we're going to run up to Desdemona and talk to her and say, hey, I killed a Courser. Can you... I'm going to grab these TV dinner trays, by the way, for aluminum for crafting later on. We're going to say, hey, we got the Institute code. Let's decode this. And she'll say, okay, let's do it. So I'm going to sleep for an hour to skip her walking. I'm going to shoot her to skip her dialogue. And also Tom. Turns out in this game that if you're allied with someone, you can actually shoot them about 4 to 5 times before they'll aggro to you. And you can use that to skip their dialogue lines. So that's what we do. And then Tom has a long dialogue right here where he goes through decoding the chip. But if we just fast travel back to the we fast travel to the HQ, which is where we already are, and then just exit and re-enter, then it'll skip majority, if not all, of his dialogue. I only have the send it down commands for official language releases of the game. So he says solve for N, so I'm going to quick save and then load warp back to Virgil's cave. Russian, I know that is a official language release for the game, but I just haven't done that one yet. I haven't done the ones that don't use English characters. Sup, Eridan. So we load warp into the cave so we can go talk with Virgil again. And once we talk with Virgil, what he's actually going to do is give us the teleporter plans.
Je me demandais si je vous reverrai un jour.
Je vous avais bien dit que j'y arriverais.
Désolé après comme
Bla 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 bla.
Yeah, we have lots of new strats and a new route since then, Jen.
pour faire. Vous savez tout. Je tiens.
Je veux des résultats. Pas des...
Oui, bon, mais vous en êtes.
Vous doutez de moi?
Non, mais n'oublie.
The one for English is just send it down. No language at the end. So once we're done talking with Virgil, we're going to fast travel back to the HQ to talk with Desdemona and Tom so we can start building the teleporter. And before I fast travel away to build a teleporter, I'm actually going to drop my military grade circuit board that I picked up during the Virgil split. The circuit board is required to build this like big thing that goes on top of the teleporter. I forget what it's called. But the thing is that a circuit board can be scrapped for 5 circuitry, and the game will automatically scrap it for our circuitry need for the first thing we build in the teleporter. So we have to drop it to make sure it isn't scrapped. So I bind my jet I picked up earlier, drop the circuit board, and fast travel to the sanctuary. I have to remember though to pick up the circuit board when I fast travel back. The first thing we build is platform. So this teleporter split went really well. I golded by 3 seconds during it, but there were some things that went wrong. So I do know that my gold split, which is the best I've ever done in a split, is improvable. So I build the reflector platform, and I travel to Diamond City as opposed to the HQ first. The reason for this is because if I go straight back to the HQ, it'll be nighttime, and Tom will be sleeping, and it'll waste time having to wait for him to wake up. So I just fast travel to Diamond City, and then back to the HQ, and then it'll be about like 6 a.m. or something like that, and Tom will be awake. So I'll run up to Tom and talk to him. Being sure to pick up the circuit board, and he'll set up the final, or he'll tell us pretty much, okay, here's the rest of the plans. So we got the platform built. We can go back to Sanctuary. And I should say a lot of these dialogues, we've discovered where they specifically end and like give quest updates. So I leave a lot of quests or a lot of dialogues in the middle of the dialogue. I leave a lot of quests in the middle of the dialogue because we don't need to finish the actual dialogue to progress the quest. So I'm going to build the teleporter now. This building was pretty sloppy, not gonna lie. This is pretty slow for me. I had a lot of trouble with that red ball that was rolling. And then I accidentally exited too early, so I had to re-enter. So I could honestly probably beat this split by another 5 seconds. So I'm going to now talk with the railroad, or talk with Des and Tom, and we're going to teleport into the Institute by stepping on the platform. Skip a couple of Des lines by shooting her right here. And you can, Tom normally has a long dialogue, but you can actually skip it by just fast traveling away right there. So as soon as we load into Concord, we're going to be teleporting into the Institute. And when we get to the Institute, the first thing we're going to do is put in the holotape of the Institute relay transporting sequence, or whatever it was called. The thing that we got off of Sturgis way early on in the run, because that's what we used to teleport in the railroad, or the Minutemen. And here's where the game gets really messy. Institute relay targeting sequence, that's what it's called. Here's where the game gets really messy. So when we got the nuclear option quest line from the sewer thing, pretty much the game didn't know who to give it to us with, and it just like kind of gave it to us with the rail or the Minutemen. But then when we take that bomb and we go put the bomb on the reactor, for whatever reason it then reverts back to like the railroad. I'm not sure. I'm sure that that was a improper explanation, but Jin knows a lot more about that than I do. But I made a hard save outside of that door, and then I set up a punch warp in that corner because of how the coordinates align for a certain thing. And now I'm going to use jet to extend or slow down time and also make my jump a little higher so I can make this jump and hit this door. Without jet, you cannot make that jump because you don't jump as high, but there is a jetless alternative that is a little harder, not a little harder, a lot harder, where you have to clip out of the room and then drop down directly above it without jet, and I pretty much just like hit a really narrow window. So I trigger my frag mine and I land right in front of the reactor. I put the bomb on the reactor and then make a quick save, and I'm going to load warp to Diamond City. And the reason I load warp to Diamond City is after we place the bomb on the reactor, we need to talk to the railroad. But because the run is so messy, or this quest is so messy with the scripts and everything, they're not going to teleport in, and we need to go and talk to them at the railroad HQ. And normally Des has a long dialogue, but instead of going through that long dialogue, we can just aggro her and then put away our gun, just like what we did really early on in the run with Preston and Sturgis. And for whatever reason, it teleports us back to the Institute. This game just gets really messy. The front half of this game, the scripts all make sense. They're pretty well coded or pretty well written, but the back half of this game, it just, like the last third of this game, the scripts just get incredibly messy. So I just walk up here, shoot Des 4 times, it aggroes her, and I put away my gun, and it teleports me to the Institute. And then as soon as I load into the Institute, I'm going to wait a second and then pull up my map and fast travel back to the HQ. And the reason why I wait a second is because notice the map is all blue. If I do it too early, then the map will be too blue to see, and I can't fast travel. I won't be able to tell where I'm fast traveling to. So once I load in, all I have to do is run up and talk to Tinker Tom, and I'll say, alright Tom, fired up, and that updates the quest. I'm going to quick save, and then load warp to that save we made in the Institute on this door. And the game kind of takes a second to load after I pressed OK. That just happens with this game. I'm going to load warp on this door, which is a very narrow window, but I practice this load warp a lot off stream, like a lot. So I just hit that load warp first try like a boss, because that's still a word people use, a saying people use, like a boss. Totally still relevant. Hit this load warp, and boys, it's the sub 41. So the reason why I had to load warp to the Institute is because we don't have the fast travel point to it. So we have to load warp back into the Institute. And I just step on this teleporter, and we get teleported to the Mass Fusion Executive Suite, which is where the button is to blow up the Institute.
Daily reminder that glitches ruin the integrity of the run.
Thanks, Trent. So we split as soon, like we consider the end of the run to be when the end credits of the run play, or end credits of the game play.
Pretty slow.
And that happens right after our HUD disappears. So we end our timer when the HUD disappears. And I actually split late. My timer will say 40:57, but I went back and looked.
This is a total cheat run, glitching trough. Everything is not a run, it's just a complete joke. If you can finish the game without these absurd bug abuse, then you are a speedrunner now? Nope. Eliminate this run.
So I split at 40:57, but the reticle actually disappeared during 40:56, so the run was actually a 40:56. You might hear a window noise coming up. I took a screenshot of my splits as soon as I ended the run, and it made a window noise when I made the screenshot. So if you hear a Windows noise, that's what it is. But yeah, 40:56. The first sub
It's the end of the
41.
world,
Pretty good
all
run,
over
except for
again.
the Kellogg slide.
I close my eyes. I see my life before all
Also,
of this.
the end sequence,
the bombs.
this sequence, and also the intro
Everything
cinematic,
can change in an
they're both in
instant.
English
In the
as
future
opposed
you
to
plan
French
for yourself
because they're
shifts,
separate video
whether or
files
not you're
from
ready.
the voice language file that
At
we
some
picked
point,
or that we use.
It happens to all of us.
So these are still in English
This
because we don't replace
wasn't
the
the
video
world I
files. We
wanted,
only
but
replace the French voice
It was
files,
the one I found
which is
myself
also why
in.
all these subtitles and everything were in English. It was an English install of the game with French voice files replacing the English ones.
Ripped apart and put back together.
Yeah.
I thought.
Thanks
I
for the
hoped
congrats.
I could find
Got
my
this run
family,
last night,
cheat
boys.
time, make us whole
Let the
again.
ending cinematic and all play out, and then I'll do some more actual runs.
But now I know. I know I can't go back. I know the world has changed. That the road ahead will be hard. This time, I'm ready. Because I know war.
Right after I also go to the bathroom.
War never changes.
I've been drinking lots of water today.